All right, let's get right into it. We're diving into this absolutely harrowing tale of survival, a story about facing down a monstrous ancient predator.
So picture this. You've got a father, John, and his daughter, Amy. They're on what's supposed to be a dream vacation. But it's about to turn into an absolute nightmare. A birthday celebration becomes this desperate fight for your life on an island that, frankly, shouldn't even exist.
So our story kicks off on what looks like a perfect day at sea. You know the type. Calm waters, clear skies. John and Amy are just soaking it all in, totally clueless that deep down beneath them, the ocean is hiding a truly terrifying secret. Okay, so to celebrate Amy's birthday, her dad, John, gives her a pair of walkie-talkies. And it's a really sweet gift, right? A symbol of their bond. Little do they know, this simple gift is about to become their only lifeline when things get unimaginably horrible. And then, the first clue that something is seriously wrong. A whole pod of dolphins comes racing past the boat, just fleeing in terror. And you can tell they aren't playing around. They are running for their lives. Before anyone can even figure out what's going on, this monstrous creature just erupts from the depth, flips their ship like a toy, and strands the handful of survivors in a completely hostile new world. So after all that chaos, the few people who made it drag themselves onto this beach. They're dazed, they're confused, and they're about to realize their nightmare has only just begun. The true horror of this place is about to make itself known, and for John, well, it's about to become every parent's worst nightmare. So what comes out of the jungle? The very beast that wrecked their ship? A snake of just impossible size. It's a living nightmare, and it starts to feed, swallowing people whole one by one. And John has to watch in absolute terror as this thing gets to his daughter, Amy, and just swallows her. John is just completely broken. I mean, he thinks he's lost everything. But then, just when all hope seems gone, you hear this faint, staticky voice crackle over that walkie-talkie. It's Amy. She's alive. Somehow, she's alive and trapped inside the monster. So, clinging to this one tiny sliver of hope, John manages to convince a few other survivors to go with him deep into this oppressive jungle. They think they're hunting a snake, right? Oh no, they're about to find out they're the ones being hunted, and they've just walked into some kind of twisted laboratory of horrors. So they're following this trail of destruction the snake left behind. But they don't find a nest, not right away anyway. What they do find is an old abandoned factory, a building. What in the world is a man-made factory doing on a supposedly uncharted island? And this discovery, it changes everything. Inside this decaying building, they start finding all this evidence of something really, really sinister. We're talking vats of weird chemicals, the skeleton of a soldier, and these bizarre photos of mutated, grotesque animals. And then the research notes they find scattered around. Well, they confirm their absolute worst fears. So this is the big reveal. This isn't some natural island. They're in a failed zoo, a biological weapons lab, where literally everything from the plants to the animals has been genetically engineered to be a killer. They've stumbled into a nightmare theme park. And as if the giant snake wasn't bad enough, John's group now has to fight their way through this gauntlet of all the other failed experiments on the island. They get attacked by killer trees with these deadly tentacles. They get swarmed by flying piranhas that come out of this weird fog. And they're even hunted by a giant frog with a tongue that's just lightning fast. Okay, so while her dad is battling his way through this jungle of horrors, let's not forget about Amy. Her own terrifying situation is getting more and more desperate by the minute. The snake finally gets to where it's going, and then it regurgitates its victims, who are still alive by the way, including Amy. It drops them into this deep, inescapable pit. And when they wake up, they realize they're in this horrifying nest, surrounded by giant, unhatched snake eggs. So you see what's happening here, right? We've got this dual nightmare playing out. On the outside, John is on this frantic hunt, fighting off monster after monster to save his daughter. And on the inside, Amy is living this claustrophobic horror movie, trapped and just waiting for a whole new generation of these things to hatch. And of course, panic sets in, and panic leads to a fatal mistake. There's this selfish businessman trapped with them, and he decides the best way out is to start smashing the eggs. Big mistake. He breaks one open, and instead of fixing things, he unleashes the very first, very hungry baby serpent. And guess how many people this guy helps after he manages to scramble out of that pit? One. Himself. The number of other people he helps is 0, a big fat 0. He gets to safety and just abandons everyone else to be eaten by all these newly hatched snakes. All right, this is it. The two storylines are about to smash together in this desperate, explosive final battle. And we're going to see what happens when true heroism and pure cowardice finally meet. So the businessman finds John's group, and what does he do? He lies, tells them everyone in the pit is dead. John is absolutely crushed. But then he hears it. Amy's voice one more time on that walkie-talkie, and that's all he needs. Fueled by this new hope, he follows her voice and finally finds the serpent's nest.
And in the absolute chaos of this rescue attempt, we see two very different fates play out. You have the ship's captain, who sacrifices himself to help Amy and another girl get to safety, a true hero. And then you have the businessman. In his panic to get away, he slips, falls right back into the pit, and gets swarmed by the very baby snakes he unleashed. Poetic justice, maybe?
But they're not out of the woods yet, not even close. Their reunion is cut short because the enraged mother snake comes back, and she is furious that they're in her nest. And in the chaos, she lunges and swallows Amy for a second time. Okay, so Amy is back inside the beast. There are no other options. John and this other survivor, Jack, they come up with this crazy, desperate plan, a fiery trap, using that flammable tree sap they found earlier. It's basically a suicide mission, but you know what? It's their only shot. So Jack acts as bait, luring the massive snake into the pool of black liquid. John throws the torch, and boom! The trap works perfectly. The gigantic creature that's been terrorizing them is just gone, engulfed in this massive, roaring inferno. But what about Amy? They frantically pull her from the smoldering remains of the monster, but she's not moving. She's unresponsive. And for one terrifying, silent moment, you think they were too late. But after what feels like an eternity, she wakes up, right there in her father's arms. Their horrifying ordeal is finally over.